on this computer. Okay, so it's now I've forgotten what date it is. It's Wednesday, October 5th, still. It's social studies. And we are on the third day of going on our field trip, but we also have an assignment. So I'm just going to quickly share the screen and show you the assignment for today. So here, if we go to our agenda, you can see that it says today on Wednesday, October 5th. Oh, there's a lot of things on there. There we go. You can see down here that if you go to the bottom, it says Zoom to content lesson, lesson 1.01, but today's the day you submit quiz 1.01, hunting for physical features. If I go right into that, this one's live, so I can click it. I know how sometimes they are live and sometimes they're not, and I don't really know why. It's just a graded quiz based on the lesson you guys have been working on for a couple of days on longitude and latitude and finding physical features of the landscape. Any questions on what's due there? I think a lot of you have already done it, actually. Raise your hand if you've already done it. Good job. So again, this is in social studies, and it's 1.01, hunting for physical features, and this is the quiz, not the lesson. So you were supposed to do the lesson yesterday, the quiz today. And then continuing, some of you are in your forts, and we're going to our fort. We are on the third day of our field trip to Fort Vancouver. Yesterday, we went to the fur store. Today, we're going to the trade shop at Fort Vancouver. Let's go. The Indian trade shop. All right, virtual field trip. The Indian trade shop was a place where fur trappers could trade their furs for other items like blankets, dishes, animal traps, and more. So the fur trappers in this case were the Native Americans. Watch this video to learn more. And this is the building you can see if you go to Fort Vancouver. I'm hoping some of you are talking to your parents about going there. Is anybody planning a trip to Fort Vancouver?
Hi, my name is Pat. I'm a volunteer at Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. And I'm here to tell you about one of the buildings. And it's actually the building that we're in. It's called the Indian Trade Shop. And as you could probably guess from the name, it's where Native people traded with the people here at Fort Vancouver. If I stood behind the desk here, I was either a clerk or perhaps I was the post doctor, because the doctor had other jobs. One of the jobs was running this store. So I spoke English if I was back here, but the people that walk through the front door might speak a tribal language, or they might speak French or some other language. So what they did was they came up with a language called Chinook Wawa, or Chinook jargon. And it was used in the village where the people lived. It was used to trade. So I'll give you an example. So if someone walked through the door and they said, hoi hoi, that means trade. And if they said, hoi hoi pasisi, pasisi means blanket. So I would understand that they wanted to trade hoi hoi for pasisi, a blanket. And we could start negotiating at that point. And there really wasn't much negotiation. The prices were set. And it was all based not really on money. There was no cash used here. Of course, it was before the days of credit cards. But what they used was trade. And that was the way the world worked here. Native people had been trading since, as they say, since time immemorial, since as long as they could remember. So the British came in with this business. They decided to use that trade system that was already in place and trade with the native people. Now imagine you're a native person in the 1840s and you've never really needed any of this stuff during your life. You've been living in this area, or your family's been living in this area for generations. But all of a sudden you have things that you've never seen before. It would be kind of like you or me going to a new tech exhibit or a trade show or something like that and seeing all these gadgets that we know we could do without, but we know they'd be fun to have. Beaver was kind of the standard. Everything was compared to a beaver. That was called a made beaver. It was a certain size, certain quality. Everything else was judged as compared to that. So 2 otters, for example, equaled 1 beaver. 1 gray wolf equaled 1 beaver. So you get the idea. So things were priced at how many beavers you could get for it. So for example, those Hudson Bay blankets would be, depending upon the size, valued at 1 beaver or 2 beavers and so on. So a small blanket would be worth 1 beaver, and a larger blanket would be maybe 2 beavers, and so on. And the blankets were divided into categories by size and indicated by something called points. They had marks on them. And that was how you could tell the size. If you, just by looking at one, you could tell the size just by looking at the number of points on it. You could get linen from Ireland. You could get silk from China. You could get fabric from India and Europe to make your own clothing. And you could get a couple of shirts for a beaver. So it was all beaver based, I guess you could say, was the way the prices worked. So in the case of the Hudson's Bay Company, they were trading extremely valuable furs for things that were valuable to the people, but cost a lot less. So that was how they were able to make a profit, because the things that were offered for trade here didn't cost the Hudson's Bay Company anywhere close to the value they received from the furs. So that's how they ran a profitable business. This book is called the Ledger Book, and the clerks or whoever was running the store would write the transactions into the ledger book and record them. So for example, if I was trading with someone about a beaver hide, I might write in the book that I traded so-and-so for a beaver hide in exchange for a blanket. And that is how the Hudson's Bay Company kept their records. And that is how the historians here know some of the things that were actually contained in the store.
And that's that. That one wasn't quite as interesting, I didn't think. Did you? We didn't get to see too much. Let's see what it says. Visit the Indian trade shop at Fort Vancouver where people who live there could buy supplies. You might say, can I buy anything at Fort Vancouver? Not in that shop, but they do have a gift shop. Fort Vancouver was the center of a large trading network which stretched from London to Hawaii. Who was involved in this trade and why? So who was trading and what were they trading? Can anybody tell me? We just learned about it. Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
The